next to the stage, I'd love to welcome Kate Welsh, who is our Senior Director of Expansion, and then also Emanuela, who is the Global Cross-Border Payments Head at Citi. So if you could both please join the stage, I would love to hand over to you both for your discussion. Keep the chat going. Got any questions that you have coming through, please do all share everything. And don't forget as well to click on the icon to be able to listen to which language you would like to be able to hear this webinar in. So if Kate and Emanuela are able to join the stage, that would be great, please. So this topic is going to be how to unlock growth and simplify payments, which is understandably a key factor in being able to expand globally across a global workforce. Everyone needs to be paid. And after we've had Kate and Emanuela join us, we will then be moving on to looking at the workforce of the future. We're going to be having Ruth from Hayes, who will be talking to us about navigating the global skills and looking at the disruption and how to seize that opportunity. So I wonder where they are. Here they are. Here's Kate. Nice to have you here, Kate. Thanks for your time.
Hi, thanks so much.
Lovely to have you too. And Emanuela, thanks very much for your time. So I'm going to hand over to you both and I will pop back in later.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. Emanuela, great having the opportunity to chat with you. I thought we could start off with introductions. Why don't you introduce yourself and then I'll give a quick introduction of myself and then we can get going.
Sure, thank you, Kate. Emanuela Saccarola. I am the Global Head of Cross-Border Payments for TTS at Citi, part of Citi Services. I'm based in Dublin. I've been in payments for many, many years when they were not as complicated or sexy as they are today.
And my name is Kate Welsh. I'm the Senior Director of Expansion Operations at Deel, where my team works on new market expansion and post-sales go-to-market strategy and operations, in addition to some other business operations part of the organization. So thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. I wanted to kind of get your perspective on the challenges and opportunities right now for cross-border payments, security, and the role in it and unlocking growth for companies with a global focus. So one of the first questions I have for you are, what do you see as the key challenges businesses face when paying international employees and contractors? And how do you see cross-border payment solutions helping overcome these challenges?
So I think the key challenge is really one word, is the complexities, right? And the complexities is around a lot of different dimensions. When you're looking at cross-border payments and internationally, you're obviously looking at least two markets. Most likely is an FX conversion. There are local regulations in the originating market, destination market. And generally, the world of cross-border payments, like the world of payments, and I was making a joke a little bit, is very active right now, right? There is a lot happening, a lot of innovation, a lot of disruptions. So you may be aware that there is an entire industry effort organized around the G20, which was established in 2020 with the goal by 2027, so very close now, to make cross-border payments faster, more transparent, and more cost-effective while keeping them safe and secure. So what we've been doing as an industry is actually achieving some of these goals, and we're not there, and it's a little patchy. But most definitely, I think the environment today is different than maybe 10, 15 years ago. But what we have failed, or we need to work, but is also probably a result of the disruption that we're facing, is that things have got more complicated. So just to bring you a real example, if you were paying an employee 10 years ago into Singapore and you were based in the US, you probably had two options, a wire payment and maybe a check. For sure, both of them were very expensive. The check was probably very slow, not cost effective, and also subject to fraud and other risks. Today, if you want to pay that same employee in Singapore, you can send a wire payment, a local ACH. You can pay them into a wallet. That could be a Grab wallet or a PayPal wallet. You can pay them via FAST, which is the instant payment scheme on demand. So how do you navigate all this? It's complex, but it's actually unlocking growth, because what we have succeeded at is we actually made payments faster, more transparent, and more cost effective, because all the new types that I mentioned, instant payments, payment into wallets, local ACH, are cheaper for sure. Some of them are more cost effective, and some are also faster. So I think overall, your opportunities to grow and pay internationally is easier, but there is a lot to navigate. So the key question is, how do you navigate the space? And experts, financial service providers, and companies like Deel can help you in navigating that very complex environment that, if unlocked, can be very, very supportive of a very fast growth, and you can really unlock your potential.
What do you think are key features that allow companies like Deel and others to take that complexity and variety of offerings and actually unlock that growth and ability to attract and manage globally distributed talent? You know, Deel has a plethora of options for contractors to get paid. So over 10 payment methods, a debit card in USD, in some cases, foreign currency contracts in places where currency is unstable. What do you think are some of the key features from a UI perspective or from a pure offering perspective that make this work?
Yeah, so I think key features across all the dimensions that I mentioned, but so speed, transparency, cost effectiveness, and payroll payments tend to be low value, right? So you can maybe absorb a $30 fee if you're making a 30 million payment for a direct investment. But if you're paying a lot of employees, these tend to be lower value, and the $30 fee becomes not viable. So all of this is still relevant, but I think other things that I would highlight is data. Data is key, and accuracy of data, especially when you pay internationally. A lot of the friction in cross-border payments is actually the return flow. When things don't go well, there is obviously a reversal of the payment, a return. There is maybe an FX contract that needs to change. So I think that the whole industry, again, has been working on data, and you might be aware of the ISO 20022 program, which is primarily impacting financial institutions. But the benefits of the ISO 20022 program is really for the users, the payers that are paying internationally, because what it means is that we are actually, all of us banks, soon, it's in progress, we're not there yet, will speak the same language. And to bring it back to a corporate, we're moving from a flat format that was unstructured, like an MT103, to a NASO XML structured format, which is MX. And that means that you actually are able to improve the compliance screening, meaning less payments will be stopped for compliance. So if you're paying someone in Spain from the US, they happen to live in Cali de Cuba, today that payment for sure will go to different levels of compliance teams to be dispositioned. So they will take longer to get to the destination. In the new format, it will be clearly a state address in Spain, and as our system will become smarter, it will not stop. And then you will have more data for reconciliation. You will have more data, more STP. So data is important, but obviously richness of data, but accuracy also very important. So in your onboarding process, to ensure that you have clearly laid out what you need in order to make that cross-border payments. And in some cases, it might be a sort code. In some cases, it might be a purpose code. In some cases, it might be a phone number of the employee that you're paying. So having that kind of customized onboarding process. And then banks and payment service providers are working a lot on validation. There is open banking, there's Swift is working on allowing a standalone API where you can ensure that when you onboard an employee, the data, so for example, a BANA name and an account number are matching. So these are things that are evolving and will become more BAU and business as usual and more widespread. But data is absolutely one key component when you pay internationally, in all cases, but in particular when you pay internationally.
So I think doubling down on your point about data, how would you characterize best practices for companies that are paying employees to ensure timely and accurate payments to their globally distributed workforce? What advice would you give them, and how would you distill the areas of focus for them to get right?
Yeah, so again, I think it's the onboarding process is very important. And I would say also the beneficiary experience in a payment is becoming more and more relevant. So depending on what industry you're in, you might be paying very traditional employees that are going to the office and they're working in the same location for 30 days, and then they're going to get paid either twice a month or once a month. That still exists, but a lot of what we see is a different type of employee, an employee that might be a gig economy worker, might have multiple jobs, may actually have options to either work with you as an agent or as an employer or work with someone else. And depending on the experience you're providing, the choices that you're providing, they might actually choose you versus someone else. And that is true in a lot of industries. We are seeing it in the ride hailing, for example. If you are good at paying your drivers, you will attract more drivers to your application and company. Very true in online travel agencies, where you're likely to have more properties on your site if you have a better payment experience to your host. The line of the clients, the employees is a little more blurry in the new world. So I think providing options, because, for example, if you're sitting in the US and you're paying someone in China, more likely they would like to get paid into a wallet. Everything happens in wallets in Alipay, which I pay in that economy. Maybe not so much in the US, maybe it's happening, but not at the same pace. Similar, if you're paying someone in Kenya, you have to have M-Pesa. So understanding the dynamic and the preferences of your employees, because the beneficiary, the employee, are very important, and the payment experience might dictate if you retain that employee or not. And then transparency. The industry is a bit unique. Transparency, we have surveyed our clients a number of times, actually, and transparency of fees, transparency and traceability of payments is very important for you as the payer, but also for the beneficiary as the receiver of that payment. And there are solutions. Citi has one called Global Beneficiary Services, which is really like a pizza tracker or an Amazon package tracker. You as an employer and a payer, but also your beneficiary, can see the transaction as it moves through the network. So although maybe you're not paying on demand and real time, if your beneficiary, your employee knows that the payment has been issued and is going to get to their bank account in 2 days, that kind of gets them comfortable that they don't have to worry about for 2 days at least, right? So I think it is important to provide the end-to-end experience. So transparency, speed, we talked about it, but the overall payment experience is a best practice to retain happy employees.
Yes, that's very in line with our experience in terms of providing employees and contractors, especially the ability to choose when, how much to withdraw. And then again, the pizza tracker is key in terms of reducing kind of inbound requests of where's my payment. And also it affects the perception of speed, because you understand based on the payment option you've selected how long it's going to take and where your money is sitting.
Exactly, and also make the more traditional payment type, like a payment into an account, very digital, because in the case of this solution we have at Citi, is really a link that is being sent to a text message via text message or through email that the beneficiary, the employee in this case, can click, and they can see literally like you would do with an app where the payment is. So even if you're paying traditionally to an account, it just makes that experience more digital and a little bit more sophisticated.
How do you see companies leveraging fintech tools to make global hiring more efficient and less complex?
I think there is a lot of technology available, and I would say some of the things that are extremely relevant in the space of cross-border payments, I already mentioned, is really that kind of technology applications at the onboarding that allows to navigate or guide, I guess, the new employee to provide the right data. There is also artificial intelligence. Obviously, it's relatively new in the financial payment space. I'm sure there are a number of applications in your companies in whatever segment you're using, but we're dealing with 60 projects at Citibank just to assess how we can use artificial intelligence. I think other tools that are extremely relevant, which are technology enabled, API is one, not as maybe new as artificial intelligence or blockchain, but one that can really create that dynamic experience when you're onboarding or on an app, to your point, Kate, about choosing how to get paid. And the whole concept of payment on demand is enabled by an API integration. So the employee can choose to be paid twice a week, once a day, once a month, 3 times a month, depending on how they want to cash out. And that is all empowered by API. So it is not a new technology, but the applications are new. And then obviously blockchain and DLT can be used. And what we find at Citi is probably the most important usage is for liquidity management and managing your kind of local, as you grow, you might have to have liquidity in different markets, and that is also an important component of managing your payables in different currencies. So there is a lot of technology and probably a lot more that I haven't mentioned, but in the constant of like payments and cross-border, I would say these are probably the more relevant ones.
From a compliance standpoint, what strategies do you see businesses using to manage the challenges of global payroll as they expand their workforce?
Yeah, so compliance is very evolving, right? And I think the regulatory environment is challenging. So I think it's really you should not do that alone, for sure. There are companies that are local in the markets that like Deel or Citibank, they have branches where you're actually not only initiating the payments, but also making the payments. And we always say that a proprietary network and a local presence is very important because a lot of times, especially with the innovation, and an example I can give you is, as you look at instant payments, these schemes are actually born domestic, and a lot of the regulators don't even think about cross-border. So understanding from a financial institution, if you can offer an instant payment to a client from a cross-border perspective, it takes a little bit of understanding of the rule book and potentially in some cases even reaching out to the regulator. So my recommendation is to go to the experts, and there is obviously employment law and regulation, there is payments, FX regulations that impact international payment, that is payroll. And a lot of also more importantly in this type of payment is security and payroll are very sensitive payments in general, more sensitive than other types of payments. So there is a lot of data that goes with that payment, and it's important to safeguard that. So the regulatory requirement, very important, but also how you can make sure that the same experts are also advising on safety and security and how to best safeguard the data that you have for your employees.
if you were advising a startup on hiring in multiple countries at once, what would be the first steps you'd advise them taking in terms of how to stay compliant and the tools that they should use? Who would you recommend maybe that they talk to, or resources that they should look into?
Yeah, so again, I think companies like Deel, they have a presence and a financial institution, so that is present in the market. And I think there are options and not one size fits all. It also depends on your objectives. If you want to expand really fast, there are ways to pay internationally faster. And we had a case of a client years ago that was just, the objective was really to go into a market. Every week they were going into a market. They're present in 70 markets now. And their true important objective was to be able to pay their employee in compliance with regulations, but they were not necessarily too worried about the cost, because it was too much to be efficient and effective with the potential of slowing, the potential of being cost effective was potentially slowing down the expansion. So they went with everything that they could very fast, paying all the employees internationally, and then they went back and looked at the cost efficiencies and the rationalization, potentially opening local legal entities and local accounts instead of non-residence payments. So there is an objective, like, is it speed of expansion or is cost of expansion? But generally, I think the answer to the question is the same. Go to the expert, don't do it alone. And there is a lot of expertise within financial institutions and companies like Deel that can provide that support and guide you going internationally.
Can you share a success story where effective cross-border payment solutions directly supported global hiring and expansion?
Of course, a lot of success stories. I think that the company that I mentioned was one that was extremely fast with high volume of payments. There are years ago, there was another technology company that was doing the same. And again, maybe the method of payment was not the perfect method of payment, but they just wanted to be able to pay internationally. The other thing is really looking at how you pay internationally, what is available for that country is very important. As I mentioned, different countries have very different adoption of different type of payments. So what is relevant where you're from, it might not be as relevant to the payee. So understanding that specific is very critical. And clients, again, primarily in the gig economy, that have expanded very fast, they really take a little bit our advice on the best way to pay. The best way to pay in one market, you probably may not know. And having the opportunity to meet the beneficiary preference is relevant. So I think in the gig economy space is really the expansion and the speed of expansion. There's a lot of success stories. And as I said, there is a kind of a journey that every organization does, expanding first and finding ways to do things fast and in compliance to regulation, and then maybe introduce efficiencies later. So a number of examples, and then obviously the more traditional segments where the payrolls are more traditional, once a month, and those are into bank accounts, is really about supporting clients to make sure that every payment is on time, every time. And we have plenty of examples.
What emerging trends in global payments are likely to impact global hiring strategies in the coming years, in your opinion?
I think the trends are really about the workforce being international. I think in every company, the moment is created, most likely at the smaller number of people is international and global, versus in the past, it would be much more domestic. And I think that is a global trend. Like, you will have employees that will sit in other markets, even if you're not present there. because you would hire expertise from other markets. So I think the number one priority is really having an international strategy from the beginning, and trying to navigate that so that, again, you're prepped for paying international from day one. The trends are really around these alternative payment methods that are becoming more and more relevant. 80% of the world population will have more than one or two wallets by 2026, which is only in a couple of years. So that's over 5 billion people. So most likely payment into wallets will become more and more relevant. Don't look at like the cost, because as I said, the trends and the industry is moving into making cross-border payments more cost effective. Look at the all costs, not just one piece, transaction fees or FX spreads. There are a lot of costs in a cross-border transaction. So understanding the tools that are available and make your best choices. So I think there is a lot, like digital wallets and instant payments will just become more and more relevant. In fact, we also see trends in some markets as we uplift to ISO, as I was mentioned earlier. Some of the local ACH, which was and is still in many markets a very cost-effective way to make payroll payments, high volume payroll payments. They are very old, and the regulator, instead of uplifting them to the ISO XML standards, so they are decommissioning. So they are in Hong Kong is happening as we speak. The only way to make low value payroll type of payments would be through the faster payment scheme, instant payments. So the flexibility as well of being able to shift from one payment method to the other is extremely important because it's a very dynamic space. So those are the trends. It's like very complex, but a lot of the complexities is because we're improving the space. It's becoming more cost effective, it's becoming faster, more transparent.
And my last question before we're at time is, outside of the rideshare industry, have you seen any trends in particular industries where cross-border payments and the different options has a real edge in terms of being able to attract talent or be competitive?
Yeah, of course, even in traditional space, like airlines, right? Airlines are now looking at the very terrible process about compensating passengers for flight delays or lost luggage. That is, everybody has experienced that probably on this webinar. So they're looking at apps, so they're looking at how can they do it on demand, how can they do it on, again, providing choices rather than a voucher or something that you maybe get 2 months later. So that's a very traditional industry that is being disrupted and is thinking about payments experience as very important, as a competitive edge. And I think there are also the host, as I mentioned earlier, online travel agencies. I would say that you could also think about more traditional segments like insurance, where being paid on the, like when you submit a claim, being paid faster rather than receiving a check like maybe 10 days later. That is also attracting, obviously, that person to a specific company for life insurance or auto insurance or whatever it might be. So the payment experience is becoming a value-added service that a lot of organizations would have to think more and more as critical to attract employees, retain clients, and it could be employees or developers, for example, in the technology space that are applicable to all companies, vendors, as you said. So there is a lot of, I would say, more focus, and the beneficiaries have more of a voice. Before they were the forgotten part in the payment chain, but they are very important and more important now.
Before we wrap, there's a couple Q&As from the audience.
Sure.
As per your experience, what has been the cross-border workforce management trend in terms of hiring for boutique companies, firms in the ESG sustainability sector?
I'm not sure if I know the answer to this, to be honest, because we don't really have that. Obviously, ESG is a very important component, but we just process payments on behalf of our clients, so we don't have a tag or a way to recognize that. I can take it out and see if we can look at some data and maybe share it offline. But no, I don't really know the answer to this.
And one question for me, which is, besides paying employees and contractors, can I also pay cross-border partners through Deel? Deel is focused on paying employees and contractors. Partners may be coming next, but our focus is on employees and contractors through your global hiring platform. Well, thank you so much. Are there any final words that you want to share with the audience before we wrap?
No, I maybe just one recommendation: don't underestimate the importance of cross-border payments and paying your workforce internationally. For a number of reasons, it's part of your strategy from day one. So it needs to be thought. It's not a second thought; it's the first thought.
That's a really great tip, and I need to now stop feeling stressed about my lost luggage that I had on my summer holiday this year, because it's brought it all back up again for me.
Sorry, apologies. We're working on that. It will be better soon.
I'm very, very happy to hear that. Thank you. And thank you both very much for taking the time to share your insights for the audience today. It's really very much appreciated.